Hello, everybody. A few years ago, I remember something about Rush Limbaugh on the radio, which is he was somebody I would listen to, for better or for worse, for all of his faults. I still would listen to him regularly, and he was entertaining, and often he often made good points. I mean, I think there was a limited degree to which one could take his general ideology or philosophy to heart, but it still came in handy in a lot of cases. I found, and Rush was certainly very good at tooting his own horn. That's something I'm not so good at. I'm a very humble guy. I'm so humble, so very very humble, and I just cannot bear to thump my chest and say, "See, I was right. I was right." But I need to. It's a new year. It's a new me, and I'm going to be less humble in the new year. I'm going to be. I'm going to be more shameless and self-promoting. That's what I've decided for the new year. At least for this video, I am. This is something I found out about myself, that I was actually quite prophetic, and you can see me, this handsome fellow. This is me from a couple of years ago, April of 2022. You can still see the sort of youthful glint in my eye, which is no longer there. That youthful glint has gone out, and as I approach senility. But back then, what was it? 21 months ago, when I was just a strapping youth, um, I I was very prophetic. I had something to say about what was then only developing, the geopolitical nightmare that was only developing in Ukraine. Um, and let's hear me out a little bit here, and then I'll show you how I have indeed been an oracle on this subject. Hey guys, you're my buds, right? You're my buddies. I can share things with you. I can get things off my chest because we're friends, and we can talk about stuff. I don't know why I began this video in that manner, but I do want to bring up something to y'all that I see as a distinct, actual possibility unfolding soon. I don't think this is at all implausible, even though it will sound extremely implausible. Let me run by you the scenario that I see perhaps unfolding shortly. We all know, of course, what's going on in Ukraine right now, and there's a huge push to get involved, to show your virtue by by signaling that you want to help Ukraine fight back against the evil Russians. Now, one thing that problematizes all of this, of course, is the fact that it seems that much of the Ukrainian army and much of the Ukrainian population, I don't know exactly how many, I don't know what percentage exactly, but a significant percentage of them are if not Nazis, then are very Nazi-esque, certainly Nazi sympathetic. And I don't think there's any real dispute about this. I don't think anyone could argue. I mean, people have tried to say, no, that's all just fake news or whatever, but there's so much information out there. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about at all, if you think I'm just full of it, go to your search engine of preference and type in Stephen Bandera. type in Azov Battalion, type in Right Sector. Those are a few things that should get you started as far as this goes. These aren't just people, I don't think these are just people LARPing as Nazis. I think these are actual neo-Nazis. And moreover, a big part of the way that Putin, when he spoke of the invasion and the reasons for it, one of the things that he emphasized was he wanted to denazify Ukraine. So what I'm seeing as a distinct possibility in the near future, if not the near future, if not the near future, perhaps later today, we're going to start to see this. That, we're going to be kind of encouraged to go easy on the Nazis. We're going to be kind of, this most evil ideology that ever existed, as we've been told for the last 50, 60 years. It's going to be sort of like, well, let's not really emphasize that. Let's not be too stridently anti-Nazi, because who's against the Nazis? You know who's against Nazis? Putin. Putin is against Nazis. Are you saying you like Putin or something? Is that what you're saying? So just cool it with the anti-Nazism.
All right, that was me in April of 2022. Now, let's skip ahead in time just a little bit. This is an article that I actually cover in another video, but I just figure rather than showing you another video of mine and being even more self-referential, let me just go over this article again more briefly than I did in that video, and I'll leave a link to that video if you want to see what I had to say about it in greater detail. This was the Hunka scandal, and this is in Politico, which is a fairly mainstream journal of the Lugenpresse. And the headline reads, "Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi." As I point out, there's intellectual dishonesty in this very title, because no one is saying that fighting against the USSR necessarily made you a Nazi. No one said that. So already they're attempting to frame it in a way that's weaselly. So Hunka was a former SS trooper. Yaroslav. They even acknowledged he's a former SS trooper. The SS, okay, those guys who wore the death heads and the death head emblem and did some pretty unspeakable things across Eastern Europe. He was one of them. So the ongoing turmoil over Canada's Parliament's recognizing former SS trooper Yaroslav Hunka highlights one of the most important reasons why a lie can make it halfway around the world before the truth has even got its boots on. All right. Something that's untrue but simple is far more persuasive than a complicated, nuanced truth. Okay. A major problem for Western democracies trying to fight disinformation and propaganda by countering it with the truth. And that's why only one reason why fact-checking and debunking are only of limited use in doing so. Okay. In the case of Yaroslav Hunka, the mass outrage stems from his enlistment with one of the foreign legions of the Waffen-SS, fighting Soviet forces on Germany's Eastern Front. So he's SS, he's with Waffen-SS, he's a Nazi, okay? You can say that doesn't make him a Nazi. He's fighting with a Nazi battalion. He's fighting. He's an SS member. I don't know why suddenly you want to make distinctions and say, well, he's less bad, or he's not really a Nazi, or he's not the bad kind. There are bad Nazis and good Nazis. The history is complicated. Now, what makes me laugh about this is, not that it isn't true that that war is complicated, and there's good and bad in everyone, and there are good and bad people fighting on both sides of any conflict. It's just that with a group like the Nazis, these same people, Politico Journal, would just say, they would have the 1% rule when it comes to Nazis. Like, if you've got one drop, if you've got one, if you say are part of a group called the alt-right, and you happen to be friends with certain people who would call themselves Nazis, but you're not a Nazi. Well, you are still one, because you are the company you keep. You lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas, and therefore you're just as bad as they are, and therefore you deserve to be punched, because you should punch a Nazi just like Superman punched Nazis. And the alt-right are nothing but Nazis. This is what these same creeps were saying, just 6 or 7 years ago. But now in Ukraine, suddenly, let's make some distinctions here. Okay? Just like what I predicted. The idea that volunteers and conscripts were being allocated to the Waffen-SS is a hard sell for audiences conditioned to believe that SS's primary task was genocide. Well, okay, so was the SS not genocidal? Were they not genocidal in orientation? Have you guys been lying to us over the last 70 years? So I don't know. But this guy, Yaroslav Hunka, he was, if you'll recall, last year in 2023, he was applauded by the Canadian Parliament and by Trudeau and everybody, and then it came out that he was a part of this notorious battalion that was affiliated with the SS, and now they're trying to say, well, there's good Nazis and bad Nazis, or he's not really a Nazi just because he fought with a Nazi battalion, or he was fighting against the Russians, and the Russians were bad, so fighting with the Nazis against the Russians doesn't make you that bad. Suddenly they're singing that tune. They never sang that kind of tune anytime before. Which just shows you how absolutely without principle they are. And it shows you what a bunch of weasels they are. And now let's skip to the present. Now, what I just showed you was something from Politico, which is a mainstream, piece of American, quote unquote journalism, legacy journalism, mainstream journalism, mainstream media. What I'm showing you now is something from Colin Liddell's site, which is not the mainstream, but comma, or however, comma, he, as I've pointed out before, Colin Liddell, my former partner in thought crime, Colin Liddell, has latched on to all of the anti-Russia neoliberal tropes with a vengeance. And what the article he's posting here is one that is defending Stepan Bandera, who is an example of Russian victim blaming, according to whoever wrote the headline of this article here. So this is the person who supposedly wrote the article. This might be a real person, or this might be one of Colin's many sock accounts. So anyway, yesterday was the birthday of Ukrainian hero Stepan Bandera. And you remember in that video I cited, just look up these people. Look up Right Sector, look up Azov Battalion, look up Stefan Bandera, and that'll get you started. If his name evokes any, as far as Nazis who were in Ukraine fighting against Russia in World War II. If his name evokes any negative connotations in your mind, this might be because of the manipulative Russian narratives. Okay. Yes. it's like all these people. It's like, oh, the Russians are just running rings around the rest of us. They're so crafty. They're so cunning. They talk about the Russians the way that a lot of people talk about Jews. Like, oh, they're just, it's just in their blood. They just lie and deceive and manipulate and rub their hands together with glee as they do it. It's like for Colin Liddell and others of his ilk. They've found a new scapegoat. Anyhow, so for many decades since the end of World War II, Russians have used the word Nazi to label to stigmatize. Okay. Now, also the point of another irony here in all of this is these were groups, that were fighting against the United States during World War II. Now, World War II was supposed to be the Manichaean battle between good and evil, right? That's how it's sold to us. That's still how they sell it to us today. So now we're supposed to make an about face and say that people like Yaroslav Hunka, who fought against the Americans as well as the Russians, who fought against the Allies and with the Axis powers in World War II, and who was closely affiliated with the Nazi Party and wore Nazi regalia and committed atrocities. This here we got very similar case, very similar circumstance, but this article is just trying to say, well, he's a scapegoat, and he wasn't really that bad because the Russians were bad and he was fighting against the Russians, and so calling him a Nazi is just that's just wrong. Maybe it's true in a way, but the article tries to make the point that Russian invasion and subsequent occupation was orders of magnitude more barbaric, harsh, and brutal than German rule. This is a fact. Okay, so fighting for the Nazis is justifiable now in certain circumstances. This is what the author of this article is saying, and it's what Colin Liddell is saying, whether or not he's the suck account that wrote this article, or whether he's just publishing it on his site, because this is his site, so he it's an indication that he is at least sympathetic to the argument that's being made here. So, what's up, Colin? You who is always talking about how the alt-right, the dissident right, is just full of Nazis and blah blah blah, and now the Nazis aren't so bad if they're fighting for Ukraine. I mean, you can't have it both ways. It's got to be one way or the other. Either Nazis are good when they're both when they're fighting for Ukraine and when they're in the United States doing whatever they do, going to Charlottesville and making a hash of things and just fucking up and whatever, all the stuff that I mean, they haven't, let's face it, none of them have been all that effective. None of the self-proclaimed Nazis or Nazi sympathizers have been terribly effective. But nevertheless, if they're in the West, if these Nazi so-called Nazi groups are in the West, then people like Colin say that they're Russian stooges. So the Russians are setting up Nazis in the West, and yet in Ukraine, Colin is saying, "Oh, well, it's not so bad to be a Nazi. Just because you fought with the Nazis doesn't make you a Nazi. Just because you fought, with a battalion under the Nazi insignia and committed atrocities in the name of National Socialism, it doesn't make you a Nazi." So, okay, this author says Stepan Bandera was a hero, and he's celebrated as one in Ukraine today. But he was a Nazi. All right, so I was right. That's where I will conclude this video. I was right. I'll just turn this camera around on myself right now so you can see me again. I was right. I called it. I will be receiving your plaudits and acclaim now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.